Ahoy there, epic plasma gamers! Welcome back to my devlog series on Little Shell's Adventure, a beach-themed adventure game about a turtle on a quest to commit stabby stab to dumb crab dudes. Because all my epic plasma gamers hate crab dudes. Man, how I've missed saying that. So here's the quick recap. Essentially, I've been remaking this game for practice multiple times. At some point it got serious and we created an idea that developed into a full Steam game. Now, 3 years later, we're revisiting this project to give it the love it deserves. So let's talk about the new stuff. Before building out content and getting to our game's first boss, we really wanted to flesh out the systems of our game. The previous version was good, but I had a very specific deadline I had to have the original game done by. For this reason, a lot of the systems were left unpolished and didn't reach their full potential. The first big difference in this game is the shell roll. You still get it in a very similar way, but now instead of having to charge it up with some lame UI, you get to charge it up with epic UI. Okay, but there's actually more to it than that. It now charges whenever you're not rolling, so you can use it much more strategically. We also made it so the skins support a rolling animation, and it feels much more immersive to use it in the game. Another big change was the player animations in general. Previously, I had the little shell always looking towards the camera, even if you were going up. This wasn't bad. It was kind of minimalist when it came to animations, which I liked at the time. However, now the player has an animation to look up when heading that way. I think this really makes moving around the world and ending crab dudes feel more natural. Speaking of ending crab dudes, the original game had a system in place for multiple weapons. Well, sort of. So you can change your weapon, and it works. But I didn't really have the time to balance and test them out. So when playing the game, you were better off just sticking to the base sword until the end of the game, when you get the trident. Most of the weapons were gimmicky and didn't really serve many purposes. But now, they're still gimmicky, but in a fun way. We also made a lot more of them. We brought back the surfboard, made it faster and more stylish. We brought back the chicken sandwich. That's right, we're calling this a sword. Although apparently I never made this accessible in the last game. I think it just got lost in the last bit of development crunch. This one is so powerful, but very slow. Along with bringing back all the weapons from the last game, we are also adding new ones. We have this axe, which ended up being very fun to play with, but not to eat if you know what I'm saying. This will be an early game weapon that works slightly different from the base sword. We made an accordion, which makes cool sounds. And we even made the most overpowered weapon in our game, the subscribe button. Now this weapon is so powerful you really don't want to mess around with it unless you're an epic plasma gamer. Oh, what's an epic plasma gamer, you ask? All you gotta do is subscribe and join the Discord, and you can be one too. And it's fun. Alright, moving on. With these in place, it was time to take on the first dungeon in the game. Now, I feel like I make fun of the original game a little too much sometimes. I'll give it some credit where it's due. I think the first dungeon has some of the best level designing that I've ever come up with, so I use this as a solid base. I ended up reworking the art to be more minimalist and colorful to match the other dungeons. I think this is a lot easier on the eyes. I then made the dungeon pretty similar. It still has switches, watermelons, and enemies, but I've introduced them earlier on. The last game had some fireballs that you had to walk around. I really like this from a gameplay perspective, but it didn't really make sense aesthetically. I decided to change it up and make this cool armored crab guard named Tank to match his second cousin twice removed Hank. I was also able to make some unique challenges by combining the mechanics. For example, I have times where Tank blocks a watermelon that you have to launch towards a wall. Now this is all fine and good, but I know what you're thinking. This is kinda easy. Oh, there's a giant crab centaur hybrid. Bet you didn't see that coming. I was really happy with the design from this Crabitar guy from the last version, so I pretty much just copied him right over. Now boss battles have never been my favorite thing to work on. In fact, they really intimidate me most of the time. But it actually went pretty smooth this time around. I gave him 4 main phases. First up, we have a chase sequence. I made him just fast enough that you almost have to use the roll to get out of the way. He then goes into a jumping attack, something that I wouldn't have dared to do before. And then he launches a bunch of fireballs and gives you a chance to attack during the summoning phase. It's pretty much like a Dark Souls boss. Oh, I might be thinking of the wrong game. That's more like it. It really isn't too hard, but that's how I want it to be for the first boss. There were some things from the previous version that I decided to scrap for simplicity's sake. The last version of the fight spawned watermelons for you to stun him with. But despite what it may look like when an epic plasma gamer like myself is playing, it's actually really hard to pull off, so I scrapped it for now. Once you win, you get a big exposition dump, and then he explodes. Wait, why does he explode? He then drops a chest from which you can unlock the magnet glove. I was really happy with how this worked in the previous version of the game, so I brought it back. You can throw your weapon for more ranged options, and this opens up the rest of the dungeon. We ended it off by bringing back Ghost Crab. Let me tell ya, this dude is one of the worst crab dudes. He is invincible and chases you down while you finish the dungeon. This time, however, he feels 10 times cooler because of some new music tracks I made. We have this chase song for when he's far away. But then things vamp up when he's on screen and this one starts to play. After the long chase is over, you find the escape route and make it to the end of the dungeon at last. And that's pretty much it. We now have the first quarter or so of the game complete. Join us for our next Devlog, where we will tackle building out the game's first village, more dungeons, and even more stuff. In the meantime, make sure to stay epic. Bye-bye.